Prince William leaned back in his seat on the plane, gazing out at the endless expanse of blue sky punctuated by the soft tufts of white clouds. It had been a long day filled with meetings, official visits, and press interactions. For many, flying in first class was a luxury they rarely, if ever, experienced. But for William, it was simply protocol, an extension of his role as a member of the British royal family. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The cabin was serene, hushed conversations and clinking glasses filling the air. Just as William prepared to settle into his seat for the flight, something caught his eye. A man, perhaps in his 70s, shuffled down the narrow aisle of the economy section. His movements were careful. His posture stooped with age, and perhaps years of carrying burdens far heavier than most could imagine. He wore a neatly pressed blazer adorned with medals gleaming under the cabin lights, a silent testament to a lifetime of service. William felt a surge of curiosity and respect. As the man passed by, he couldn't shake the thought of how rare it was for someone like this, an unsung hero of Britain's past, to go unacknowledged. For William, who had served in the Royal Air Force and as a search and rescue pilot, there was a deep connection to the men and women who dedicated their lives to serving their country. Their sacrifices were the foundation of the freedoms others often took for granted. Without hesitation, William signaled to one of the flight attendants and whispered something in her ear. Her eyes widened briefly, but she quickly nodded. As William stood, the attendant approached the elderly veteran who had just settled into his modest seat near the rear of the plane. "Sir," she said politely, her voice warm but firm, "we'd like to move you to a different seat." The veteran looked up, puzzled. "Is something wrong?" he asked, his voice carrying the gravelly edge of someone who had seen a great deal in his life. "Not at all," she replied, "but we have a seat in first class for you." The veteran hesitated, glancing around as if suspecting some kind of mistake. "I think you've got the wrong person." At that moment, William appeared, his towering frame unmistakable. The cabin seemed to hold its breath as passengers realized who was standing there. William offered the man a warm smile. "No mistake, sir," William said, extending his hand. "I'd be honored if you took my seat." The veteran blinked, clearly taken aback. "Your seat? But you're—" William cut him off gently. "Just another passenger today," he said with a twinkle in his eye. "Please, I insist." The veteran looked around as if seeking someone to confirm that this was truly happening. When his eyes finally met William's, he saw nothing but genuine sincerity. Slowly, he rose to his feet, and the two men exchanged a firm handshake. As the veteran made his way to first class, escorted by the flight attendant, murmurs spread through the plane like ripples on water. Passengers whispered to one another, craning their necks to catch a glimpse of the prince who had just given up his seat. Some pulled out their phones, snapping photos or recording the interaction. But William paid no mind. He quietly took the veteran's former seat in economy, folding his tall frame into the smaller space with ease. For the hour of the flight, the mood was abuzz with chatter. People marveled at the prince's humility, sharing their thoughts with seatmates and occasionally stealing glances at him. But William remained unperturbed, engaging in friendly conversations with those seated near him. He asked questions about their travels, their lives, and their families, making them feel as though they were the most important people on the plane. Meanwhile, up in first class, the veteran was treated to every comfort imaginable. The flight crew went above and beyond, serving him gourmet meals and the finest champagne. Yet, as he sat there, the man couldn't help but feel a lump in his throat. This wasn't just about the seat or the luxury. It was about the recognition. For decades, he had lived a quiet life, his service largely forgotten by all but his closest family. And now, in this unexpected moment, someone had seen him, truly seen him. As the flight neared its destination, an extraordinary thing happened. One by one, passengers from all sections of the plane began approaching William. Some simply wanted to shake his hand and thank him for his gesture, while others shared their own stories of service or connections to the military. One woman tearfully recounted how her father had fought in World War II, and how acts of kindness like William's helped keep the memory of such sacrifices alive. Then, a young boy, no older than 10, stood shyly before William, clutching a piece of paper. With his mother's encouragement, he handed it to the prince. It was a drawing of an airplane with stick figures labeled Prince William and the Hero. The boy's wide eyes sparkled with admiration. William chuckled warmly, thanking the boy and promising to keep the drawing as a memento. The veteran, too, found himself surrounded by kindness. Fellow first-class passengers engaged him in conversation, eager to hear his stories. Though he was modest about his achievements, the man revealed that he had served in some of Britain's most challenging conflicts, including the Falklands War. His tales were both harrowing and inspiring, leaving his listeners in awe. When the plane finally touched down, something truly remarkable occurred. As the passengers disembarked, they formed an impromptu line, each stopping to shake the veteran's hand or offer a word of thanks. Some embraced him, while others simply patted him on the shoulder. The atmosphere was electric with gratitude and reverence. William, standing a few steps behind, watched the scene unfold with quiet satisfaction. He hadn't set out to create a spectacle. His only intention had been to show respect to a man who deserved it. But the ripple effect of his small act of kindness was undeniable. As the veteran descended the stairs onto the tarmac, he turned back to look at William, who was now surrounded by a sea of people eager to speak with him. Their eyes met, and in that moment, no words were needed. The veteran offered a simple salute, which William returned with equal solemnity. The story didn't end there. By the time the news reached the public, it had taken on a life of its own. Social media exploded with praise for William's humility and the way he had honored a veteran. Newspapers ran headlines that celebrated the moment, and the story became a beacon of hope in a world often marred by division and discord. In the weeks that followed, the veteran received an outpouring of letters and messages from strangers across the globe. Many shared their own stories of loved ones who had served, while others simply wanted to thank him for his service. For the first time in years, the man felt truly appreciated, his sacrifices acknowledged on a grand scale. As for William, he continued with his royal duties, never seeking accolades for what he had done. But those who knew him best weren't surprised by his actions. They understood that for William, the principles of service and humility were not just words, but a way of life, values instilled in him from a young age and exemplified in everything he did. And as the veteran himself would later say, in an interview conducted months after the event, it wasn't about the seat, it was about being seen, about being valued. Prince William didn't just give me his place, he gave me something far greater than that. He gave me hope. As the story of Prince William's remarkable gesture spread, it began to take on a life far beyond the confines of that single flight. People around the world found themselves deeply moved by the tale of a prince willing to forego comfort to honor an elderly veteran. It wasn't simply the act of giving up a first-class seat, it was the message behind it. A message of respect, humility, and recognition of those whose sacrifices often go unnoticed. In the days following the event, the veteran, whose name was later revealed to be Robert Bob Henshaw, returned to his small village in the English countryside. The quiet hamlet was usually untouched by the buzz of media attention, but now reporters and journalists were arriving in droves, eager to learn more about the man at the center of this extraordinary story. Bob, a humble man by nature, was initially overwhelmed by the sudden attention. However, with encouragement from his family, he decided to share his story. Bob had served in the British Armed Forces for over 3 decades, dedicating his life to his country. He had seen action in several major conflicts, including the Falklands and the Gulf War, and had narrowly escaped death on more than one occasion. But like so many veterans, Bob had quietly returned to civilian life after his service, blending into the background as he built a modest life for himself and his family. He rarely spoke of his time in the military, preferring to focus on the present rather than dwell on the past. When asked about his experience on the flight with Prince William, Bob spoke with a mixture of humility and awe. "I never expected anything like that," he told a reporter from a local newspaper. "To be honest, I didn't even recognize him at first. I was just trying to get to my seat without causing a fuss. But when he offered me his place, it wasn't about who he was, it was about what he did. He showed me that even after all these years, my service still means something." Bob's words struck a chord with people everywhere. For veterans and their families, it was a reminder that their sacrifices were not forgotten. For civilians, it was an invitation to reflect on the ways they could show gratitude and respect to those who had given so much. Meanwhile, Prince William continued with his royal engagements, seemingly unfazed by the media storm surrounding the incident. For him, the moment on the plane had been a natural extension of the values he had been raised with. Values rooted in empathy, service, and a deep appreciation for those who had paved the way for the freedoms enjoyed today. But while William remained modest about his actions, the ripple effects of his gesture continued to grow. In schools across the UK, teachers used the story as a teaching moment, discussing the importance of kindness, humility, and respect. In one classroom, a teacher asked her students to write letters to veterans in their community, inspired by Prince William's example. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of letters poured in, filled with heartfelt messages of thanks and admiration. For many veterans, these letters were a source of profound comfort and validation. Community groups and organizations also took notice. Fundraising efforts for veterans' charities surged in the wake of the story, with individuals and businesses stepping forward to contribute. One particularly notable campaign was launched by a group of veterans who wanted to pay it forward by creating a fund to provide first-class travel for elderly servicemen and women on special occasions. The campaign quickly gained traction, raising thousands of pounds within weeks. Amid all this activity, Bob found himself becoming something of a local hero. Neighbors who had known him for years now saw him in a new light, and strangers approached him to express their gratitude. But while Bob appreciated the attention, he remained grounded, often deflecting praise to focus on the broader significance of what had happened. "This isn't about me," he said during a televised interview. "It's about all of us. The veterans, the servicemen and women, and the people who support us." What Prince William did was a reminder that we're all part of something bigger, something worth cherishing. The story also sparked discussions within the royal family itself. Prince William's actions were widely praised, both by the public and within the palace walls. Queen Elizabeth, known for her steadfast commitment to duty and service, was said to have been particularly moved by her grandson's gesture. It was a testament to the enduring values of the monarchy, a reminder that leadership is not about privilege, but about serving others. Prince Harry, too, weighed in, speaking from his home in California. Having served in the British Army and launched initiatives like the Invictus Games, Harry shared his own thoughts on the importance of honoring veterans. "What William did is a reflection of who he is," Harry said during an interview. "We both grew up understanding the sacrifices made by those in uniform, and I think it's important to continue finding ways to show our gratitude." As the weeks turned into months, the story's impact continued to evolve. Social media remained abuzz with discussions, with hashtags like #honoringheroes and #royalkindness trending across platforms. Artists and writers found inspiration in the tale, creating paintings, poems, and songs that celebrated the themes of service and humanity. One particularly striking piece was a mural painted in a London neighborhood, depicting Prince William shaking hands with Bob against a backdrop of poppies and Union Jack flags. The mural became a local landmark, drawing visitors from far and wide. The story even crossed international borders, resonating with audiences in countries as far away as the United States, Canada, and Australia. Veterans organizations in these nations reached out to their British counterparts, sharing ideas and launching joint initiatives to support those who had served. It was a powerful reminder of the shared bonds between allies and the universal nature of gratitude. For Bob, the experience was transformative in ways he could never have anticipated. One particularly poignant moment came during a visit to a local primary school where he was invited to speak to students about his life and experiences. Standing before a room full of wide-eyed children, Bob felt a mixture of nerves and pride. He spoke candidly about the challenges of military life, the friendships he had forged, and the lessons he had learned along the way. When he finished, the room erupted into applause, and the children lined up to shake his hand and thank him. That day, as Bob left the school, he was struck by the realization that his story, and the stories of countless other veterans, had the power to inspire future generations. It was a humbling thought, but also an empowering one. For the first time in years, Bob felt a renewed sense of purpose, a belief that his life's work had meaning far beyond what he had imagined. Prince William, too, found himself reflecting on the impact of that single flight. In conversations with close friends and advisors, he spoke of the profound connection he had felt with Bob and the importance of continuing to honor those who had served. Inspired by the experience, William began exploring ways to deepen his involvement with veterans' causes. He attended more events, met with more servicemen and women, and worked to amplify their voices on a national stage. One particularly notable initiative was the creation of a new program aimed at providing support for elderly veterans facing isolation and hardship. Launched in collaboration with several charities, the program offered resources such as home visits, counseling services, and community events designed to bring veterans together. William's involvement lent the program a level of visibility and credibility that helped it thrive. And within months, it was making a tangible difference in the lives of countless individuals. Looking back, it was remarkable to consider how a simple act of kindness had set all of this in motion. What began as a fleeting moment on a plane had grown into a global movement, touching lives in ways that no one could have foreseen. And yet, at its core, the story remained profoundly personal, a testament to the power of human connection and the enduring importance of respect and gratitude. As Bob continued to share his story, and as Prince William carried on with his royal duties, the world was reminded that acts of kindness, no matter how small, could have a far-reaching impact. It was a lesson that resonated across generations, cultures, and borders, inspiring people to look for opportunities to uplift one another and honor the sacrifices that so often went unseen. In the years that followed, the story of Prince William and Bob Henshaw became something of a modern legend, retold in books, documentaries, and countless conversations. But for those who had been there, on that plane, in that moment, it was something far simpler. It was a moment of humanity, a fleeting but profound reminder of what it truly means to care for one another. And as Bob himself would later say, reflecting on the event that had changed his life forever, it wasn't just about me, and it wasn't just about him. It was about all of us, coming together to remember what really matters, and for that, I'll always be grateful. As the story of Prince William's act of kindness continued to inspire, its ripple effects extended into unexpected corners of society, impacting not just individuals but entire communities. What began as a simple gesture on a flight turned into a global conversation about respect, humility, and the power of small, intentional actions. It became clear that this was no ordinary story. It was a cultural moment that resonated deeply with people across all walks of life. For veterans and their families, the story of Bob Henshaw's recognition was a powerful validation of their own experiences. Many veterans began to feel seen in ways they hadn't before. Community centers that supported veterans reported an increase in attendance at their events. Men and women who had spent years living in quiet solitude began venturing out, encouraged by the example set by Bob and the attention his story had garnered. One such veteran was Margaret Maggie Keating, an 89-year-old former nurse who had served in the Korean War. Inspired by Bob's story, she attended a veterans luncheon in her town for the first time in decades. There, she connected with other veterans, shared her experiences, and even found herself being invited to speak at local schools about her time in service. "Bob reminded me that our stories matter," Maggie said in an interview with a local radio station. "For so long, I thought no one wanted to hear about what I'd done. But now, I see how important it is to share those memories, to pass them on so that future generations understand the sacrifices that were made." Maggie's story was just one of many. Across the UK and beyond, veterans who had long felt forgotten were being celebrated and honored in ways that had a profound impact on their well-being. Mental health organizations noted an uptick in veterans seeking support, emboldened by the renewed focus on their experiences. The stigma surrounding mental health struggles in the veteran community began to erode, replaced by a growing awareness of the need for understanding and support. The story also sparked a re-evaluation of royal protocol and traditions. While the British monarchy has long been associated with pomp and ceremony, Prince William's act of humility offered a glimpse of a more modern, accessible royal family. It became a talking point in discussions about how the monarchy could remain relevant in the 21st century. Royal historians noted that while William's gesture was spontaneous, it aligned with a broader trend within the family. William and his wife Catherine, the Princess of Wales, had long championed causes centered on mental health, children's well-being, and community service. This moment on the plane was seen as a natural extension of their commitment to using their platform for good. In response to the public's overwhelmingly positive reaction, Buckingham Palace announced new initiatives aimed at honoring servicemen and women. One such initiative was the creation of an annual Veterans Appreciation Day, during which members of the royal family would participate in events across the country to celebrate and support veterans. This day was designed to shine a spotlight on the contributions of veterans from all generations, ensuring that their sacrifices would not be forgotten. The digital age played a crucial role in amplifying the story's impact. Within hours of the flight landing, passengers had taken to social media to share their accounts of what had happened. Photos and videos of Prince William shaking hands with Bob Henshaw went viral, accompanied by heartfelt captions about the significance of the moment. The hashtag #Prince William Honors Heroes trended worldwide, with millions of users sharing their own stories of veterans and their families or moments of kindness they had witnessed. Celebrities and influencers joined the conversation, using their platforms to highlight the importance of respecting and supporting veterans. One particularly moving post came from a young woman named Clara Thompson, whose grandfather had served in World War II. Clara shared a photo of her grandfather's medals alongside a message about how Prince William's gesture had inspired her to learn more about his life. "I always knew my granddad was a hero," she wrote, "but I never really took the time to understand what he went through. Now I'm committed to keeping his story alive." The post garnered thousands of likes and comments, with many people echoing Clara's sentiment. It sparked a broader trend of families delving into their own histories, uncovering the stories of relatives who had served and honoring their legacies in new ways. The story's resonance was not confined to the United Kingdom. Around the world, people found themselves reflecting on the ways they could show gratitude and respect to those who had served. In the United States, the story was widely covered by major news outlets, prompting discussions about how veterans were treated in society. One American veteran, James "Jim" Carter, was deeply moved by the story. A Vietnam War veteran who had faced significant challenges upon returning home, Jim had spent years advocating for better treatment of veterans. He wrote an op-ed in a national newspaper, praising Prince William's actions and calling on leaders to follow his example. "Prince William's gesture wasn't about grand speeches or policies," Jim wrote. "It was a simple human act of respect, and yet it spoke louder than words. Imagine if we all approached our veterans with that same level of appreciation and care. The world would be a better place." In Australia, veterans organizations launched a campaign called Seats for Heroes, inspired by William's decision to give up his first-class seat. The campaign encouraged airlines to offer complimentary upgrades to veterans whenever possible, as a way of showing appreciation for their service. The initiative quickly gained traction, with several major airlines signing on. Recognizing the profound impact of the story, a prominent documentary filmmaker decided to create a film chronicling the event and its aftermath. The documentary, titled A Seat of Honor, combined footage from the flight with interviews from Prince William, Bob Henshaw, and other passengers who had witnessed the moment firsthand. The film also explored the broader themes of service, sacrifice, and gratitude, weaving in stories from veterans around the world. It highlighted the challenges many veterans faced upon returning to civilian life, as well as the ways in which small acts of kindness could make a difference. When A Seat of Honor premiered at a major film festival, it received a standing ovation. Critics praised its emotional depth and powerful storytelling, calling it a heartfelt tribute to the unsung heroes of our time. The documentary went on to win several awards and was later made available on streaming platforms, reaching millions of viewers. Perhaps one of the most significant outcomes of the story was its impact on the younger generation. Inspired by Prince William's example, schools and youth organizations began launching programs designed to teach children about the importance of empathy, kindness, and respect for those who serve. One such program was the Letters of Thanks initiative, which encouraged students to write letters to veterans in their communities. The program quickly became a nationwide movement, with children from all over the country participating. The letters were often deeply moving, filled with heartfelt messages of gratitude and admiration. 10-year-old Emily Davies, a student from Manchester, wrote to a local veteran named Tom. In her letter, she wrote, "Thank you for being so brave and for protecting our country. You are a true hero, and I hope you know how much we all appreciate you." Tom, who had rarely spoken about his service, was so touched by the letter that he framed it and hung it in his living room. As the years went on, the story of Prince William and Bob Henshaw remained a touchstone for discussions about kindness, service, and humility. It was taught in schools, referenced in speeches, and celebrated in ceremonies. But perhaps its greatest legacy was the way it inspired people to look beyond themselves and recognize the contributions of others. For Bob, the experience changed the trajectory of his life. He became a sought-after speaker at events, sharing his story and encouraging others to honor their own histories. But despite the attention, Bob remained the same humble man he had always been, grateful for the chance to make a difference. As for Prince William, he continued to embody the values that had driven him to act on that flight. In his speeches and public appearances, he often spoke about the importance of service and the need to care for one another. But he rarely mentioned the flight itself, preferring to let the moment speak for itself. The resonance of Prince William's gesture stretched far beyond what anyone could have anticipated. As the years passed, it became a story deeply embedded in the collective memory of people across the world, not just as an inspiring tale of a prince and a veteran, but as a symbol of how one small, meaningful act can illuminate a universal truth about humanity, that kindness and humility transcend titles, status, and circumstance. One of the most profound ways the story continued to inspire was through its integration into cultural and artistic mediums. Theater productions and plays were developed, dramatizing the event and weaving it into fictional narratives that celebrated acts of humanity and the unbreakable bond between generations. These productions, performed in small community theaters and prestigious stages alike, often ended with standing ovations as audiences connected deeply with the themes of the play. Art exhibitions also emerged, showcasing pieces inspired by the moment. Paintings, sculptures, and even interactive installations depicted the handshake between William and Bob, each artist interpreting the scene through their unique lens. One particularly poignant piece was a life-size bronze statue of a veteran and a prince, standing side by side with expressions of mutual respect. This statue was unveiled in central London and quickly became a gathering place for those wishing to pay tribute to veterans. The tale of Bob and William became a point of connection for countless individuals, sparking conversations and encouraging people to share their own stories. In memoirs, interviews, and informal gatherings, veterans began opening up about their service and their struggles. Families unearthed old photographs, letters, and medals, rediscovering legacies that had been hidden for decades. One such rediscovered story belonged to a man named Alan Green, a 95-year-old World War II veteran who had kept his memories locked away in a dusty trunk. Inspired by Bob's newfound recognition, Alan's grandchildren convinced him to open the trunk and share his tales of bravery. His stories, filled with vivid details of the Normandy landings, moved his family to tears and led to Alan being honored by his local community. His reflections were later published in a book, which went on to inspire others to document their histories. Leadership seminars and corporate workshops began to cite Prince William's actions as an example of servant leadership. Executives and professionals studied the event as a case study in humility, examining how one act of stepping aside and elevating another could transform dynamics within teams and organizations. The story came to represent a new ethos in leadership, the idea that true strength lies in empowering others and recognizing their contributions. One CEO, in particular, shared how the story changed the way he led his company. He implemented new initiatives to recognize unsung heroes within his workforce, from janitors to clerks, ensuring that everyone felt valued. Employee satisfaction soared, and the company's culture transformed, proving that the principles embodied in William's gesture had far-reaching implications beyond the personal and societal spheres. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Prince William giving up his first-class seat for a veteran? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.